I had served as lady's maid to Countess Eleanor Beaumont for exactly 1 year, when she finally looked me in the eyes and admitted a truth that changed everything I thought I understood about our relationship and why she had hired me in the first place. Before I tell you what she confessed and how 1 year of service turned into something neither of us expected, tell me in the comments which city you are watching from and make sure to subscribe to the channel to help support more stories like this. My name is Rosalie, and I came to work at Beaumont Manor because I desperately needed employment, and the position of lady's maid was the best opportunity I had ever been offered. I was 24 years old with no family and limited prospects when I answered the advertisement for a personal attendant to the young Countess of Beaumont. The pay was generous, the accommodations would be comfortable, and the work, while demanding, seemed manageable for someone with my experience in service. What I did not expect was the Countess herself. Lady Eleanor Beaumont was only 26, having inherited her title after her father's death 2 years prior. She was breathtakingly beautiful with dark hair that fell in waves past her shoulders, gray eyes that seemed to see right through any pretense, and a bearing that commanded respect without ever needing to raise her voice. She was also intensely private, having dismissed 3 ladies' maids in the year before I arrived, each lasting only a few months before being let go for reasons that were never quite explained. The housekeeper warned me on my first day that the Countess had exacting standards and little patience for incompetence or gossip. I took the warning seriously and resolved to be the perfect servant. My duties were straightforward in theory: help the Countess dress and undress, maintain her wardrobe, style her hair, attend to her personal needs, and accompany her throughout the day. In practice, it meant spending nearly every waking hour in her presence, learning her preferences, anticipating her needs, and maintaining a professional distance that sometimes felt impossible. Because the truth was, from the very first week, I found myself dangerously attracted to my employer. It was not just her beauty, though that was undeniable. It was her intelligence, the way she spoke about literature and politics with a passion that brought light to her eyes. It was her unexpected kindness to the lower staff when she thought no one of her class was watching. It was the vulnerability I occasionally glimpsed when she thought she was alone, a sadness that seemed to live just beneath her composed exterior. I told myself these feelings were inappropriate and foolish. She was a countess, and I was her servant. The gulf between our stations was absolute, and any romantic inclination I felt was both impossible and dangerous to my position. So I buried those feelings and focused on being the best lady's maid she had ever employed. But there were moments that tested my resolve. The intimacy of helping her dress, my fingers brushing against her skin as I fastened buttons or laced corsets. The quiet conversations we had in her chambers when she would ask my opinion on a book or a piece of music, treating me more like a companion than a servant. The way she would sometimes watch me with an expression I could not quite read, something that looked almost like longing before she would look away and resume her aristocratic composure. 3 months into my service, something changed. The Countess began requesting my presence even when she did not technically need assistance. She would ask me to sit with her while she read, to walk with her in the gardens, to accompany her on rides even though a groom would have been more appropriate. The other servants noticed and speculated, but I maintained that I was simply doing my job as requested. 6 months in, she began confiding in me. She told me about the pressure from her family to marry, about potential suitors being presented to her constantly, all men she had no interest in. She spoke of feeling trapped by expectations and duty, of wanting a life different from the one laid out for her. I listened and offered what comfort I could while maintaining appropriate boundaries, even as my heart ached for her and for the impossibility of what I wished could be. One evening, as I was helping her prepare for bed, she caught my hand as I was about to step away. "Rosalie," she said softly, using my first name instead of the formal address she usually employed with servants. "Do you ever feel that you are living the wrong life? That you were meant for something different, but circumstances have placed you somewhere else entirely?" I looked at her, surprised by the vulnerability in her voice. "Sometimes, my lady. I think many people feel that way." "What would you choose if you could choose anything?" she asked, her gray eyes locked on mine. "If station and duty and expectation meant nothing, what life would you want?" It was a dangerous question, and I knew I should deflect it. Instead, made bold by the late hour and the intimacy of the moment, I said quietly, "I would choose a life where I could be honest about who I am and what I feel, where I did not have to hide or pretend." Something flickered in her eyes. And what do you hide, Rosalie? The same things most people hide, my lady, I said carefully. The parts of ourselves that society says are improper or impossible. She held my gaze for a long moment, and I thought she might press further. Instead, she released my hand and said softly, "Thank you. You may go." I left her chambers feeling like something significant had just happened, though I could not name exactly what. After that night, the tension between us became almost unbearable. I would catch her watching me with an intensity that made my breath catch. Our hands would brush during routine tasks, and neither of us would pull away as quickly as we should. She began finding excuses to touch me, adjusting my collar or smoothing my hair in gestures that felt far too intimate for an employer. 9 months into my service, she received word that her grandmother, the Dowager Countess, was coming to visit. Eleanor became visibly anxious, more withdrawn than I had ever seen her. "She will bring more suitors," she told me one morning as I helped her dress. "She believes if she presents enough suitable men, I will eventually accept one simply to end the pressure." "And will you, my lady?" I asked before I could stop myself. She turned to face me, and there was anguish in her eyes. "How can I marry someone when my heart belongs to someone entirely unsuitable?" My breath caught. "My lady?" She looked at me for a long moment, then seemed to reconsider what she had been about to say. "Never mind. It is not your concern. Please finish with my hair." But it was my concern, because I was beginning to suspect that the feelings I had been hiding might not be one-sided after all. The Dowager Countess's visit was every bit as difficult as Eleanor had anticipated. She brought 2 eligible gentlemen with her, both wealthy, both well-connected, both utterly wrong for Eleanor in ways that were obvious to anyone who truly knew her. I watched from my position as lady's maid, as Eleanor endured dinners and conversations with these men, her smile fixed and her eyes empty. One night, after a particularly grueling dinner, I helped her undress, and she was shaking with suppressed emotion. "How much longer must I do this?" she whispered, more to herself than to me. "How much longer must I pretend to be something I am not?" "My lady," I said gently, "you do not have to pretend with me." She turned to face me, tears streaming down her face. "Do I not? Are you not here because I employ you? Would you even be in this room if I were not paying your wages?" The words hurt because there was truth in them, but also because she was so wrong about what kept me there. "I am here because you employ me," I said carefully, "but I stay because I care about you. Those are 2 different things." "You care about me," she repeated, her voice breaking. "As what? A servant cares for her mistress? That is not what I want, Rosalie." "Then what do you want, my lady?" I asked, my heart racing. She looked at me with such raw emotion that it took my breath away. "I want you to call me Eleanor. I want you to look at me as an equal, not as your employer. I want to tell you the truth I have been hiding for months." "What truth?" I whispered. "That I hired you because your predecessor told me before she left that she had seen the way I looked at you during your interview," she said, words tumbling out. "She said I was foolish and that employing someone I was attracted to would only end in scandal. And she was right, because every day for the past year I have been falling more in love with you, and I do not know how to stop." I stared at her, unable to process what I was hearing. "You love me?" "Desperately," she said, wiping at her tears. "Hopelessly. Which is why you need to leave. I will provide excellent references and 6 months additional pay. But you need to go before I do something that ruins both our lives." "What if I do not want to go?" I asked. She laughed, but it was a broken sound. "You do not understand what you are saying. If anyone discovered the truth, I would be ruined. You would be ruined. We would both lose everything." "I have nothing to lose," I said, taking a step closer to her. "No family, no fortune, no reputation that matters. But you, Eleanor, you are the one thing I cannot bear to lose." Her eyes widened. "Rosalie." "I have loved you for months," I confessed, abandoning all pretense of propriety. "I have spent every day hiding it, telling myself it was impossible, that you could never feel the same way. But if you are saying that you do, if you are telling me that this past year has been as torturous for you as it has been for me, then I do not want to leave." "But the scandal," she started. We will be careful, I said. We will maintain appearances. But in private, in moments like this, we can be honest. We can be ourselves. It is not enough, she said. But she was moving closer to me. You deserve more than secret moments and hidden feelings. I deserve to be with the person I love, I said firmly. And if that means secret moments, then I will take those over a lifetime of pretending with someone else. She reached up and cupped my face in her hands. Are you certain? Once we cross this line, we cannot go back. I have never been more certain of anything, I said. She kissed me then, soft and tentative at first, then deeper as months of suppressed longing finally found release. When we pulled apart, we were both breathless. I have wanted to do that since the day you arrived, she whispered. I wish you had, I said with a small smile. That night marked a turning point. We were still careful, still maintained perfect propriety in front of others. But in private, the walls came down. She was no longer the Countess and I was no longer her maid. We were simply Eleanor and Rosalie, two women who had found each other against all odds and refused to let society's expectations dictate their happiness. The Dowager Countess left eventually, disappointed that Eleanor had rejected both suitors. Eleanor endured the lectures and the disappointment with far more grace than before, strengthened by the secret she now shared with me. Months passed, and we built a life within the constraints we had. It was not perfect, and there were times when the secrecy felt suffocating. But 1 year to the day after I had first started my service, Eleanor asked me to meet her in the library after dinner. When I arrived, she was sitting by the fire, looking more nervous than I had ever seen her. Rosalie, we need to talk about our situation, she said. My heart sank, fearing she was going to end things. What about it? This past year has been the happiest of my life, she said. And also the most difficult, because I hate that we have to hide. I hate that I cannot tell the world that I love you. I hate that you are still technically my servant when you should be so much more. Eleanor, we discussed this, I said gently. We knew it would not be easy. What if we left? She said suddenly. I stared at her. Left? England, the estate, all of it. What if we went somewhere we could be ourselves? I have money that is entirely my own, not tied to the title or the estate. We could go to the continent, somewhere more accepting. We could live as companions, as sisters if anyone asked, but truly as partners. You would give up everything? I asked, hardly daring to believe it. I would give up everything except you, she said firmly. This past year has taught me that no title, no estate, no amount of social standing matters if I cannot be with the person I love. So I am asking you, Rosalie, will you leave with me? Will you build a new life somewhere we can be honest about who we are? Tears streamed down my face. Yes, 1,000 times yes. She pulled me into her arms, and I felt her shoulders shaking with relief. I was so afraid you would say no, she whispered, that you would think it was too much to ask. You could ask me for anything, I said. The answer would always be yes. We spent the next 3 months planning in secret. Eleanor quietly liquidated assets, arranged for the estate to be managed by trustees, and prepared for her departure. She told her family she needed time away to grieve and reflect, which was accepted as reasonable for a young widow, even though she had never actually been married. The servants were told I would be accompanying her as her lady's maid, which raised no suspicions. The day we left England, standing on the deck of the ship watching the coastline disappear, Eleanor took my hand. Are you certain about this? She asked one final time. You are giving up everything familiar. I am gaining everything that matters, I said, squeezing her hand. She smiled, truly smiled in a way she rarely had in England. Where should we go first? Somewhere with sunshine, I said. Somewhere we can wake up every morning and not worry about who might see us. Somewhere we can just be Eleanor and Rosalie, two women building a life together. That sounds perfect, she said. And it was. We settled eventually in a small village in southern France, in a cottage with a garden and a view of the sea. To the locals, we were English ladies who had come seeking a quieter life. Some probably suspected the truth, but in that small corner of the world, no one seemed to care enough to cause trouble. Eleanor painted. something she had always wanted to do but never had time for in her previous life. I learned to cook and tend the garden, discovering skills I never knew I had. Sometimes late at night, Eleanor would ask if I regretted anything. "Do you miss your old life?" she would say. "The estate, the title, the certainty of your position?" "I miss nothing," I would tell her honestly, "because I have everything I need right here." "I love you," she would whisper, never tiring of saying it now that she finally could. "I love you too," I would respond, marveling at how 3 words could contain so much truth. That was 5 years ago. Now, we have built a life that is entirely ours. We have friends in the village who know us simply as Eleanor and Rosalie, the English women who live in the cottage by the sea. We have routines and rituals, morning coffee in the garden and evening walks along the beach. We have weathered storms both literal and figurative, always together, always choosing each other. Sometimes I think about that night 1 year into my service when Eleanor finally admitted the truth. I think about how terrified we both were, how impossible it all seemed. And then I look at the life we have built, and I realize that the truth, scary as it was to admit, set us both free. She was right to confess after that 1 year of hiding and hoping. And I was right to say yes to every risk, every sacrifice, every leap into the unknown. Because love, real love, the kind that sees you completely and chooses you anyway, is worth any price. The year I served the Countess taught me how to be patient, how to hope, how to see beneath surfaces to the truth underneath. And when she finally admitted that truth, when she told me she loved me and asked me to build a new life with her, I learned the most important lesson of all. That sometimes the greatest courage is not in maintaining what is safe and expected, but in walking away from everything you know for a chance at something real. Eleanor gave up her title, her estate, her place in society. I gave up the security of employment and a defined role. But we gained each other, fully and completely, without hiding or pretense. And that trade, giving up everything the world said mattered for the one thing that truly did, was the best decision either of us ever made. So yes, I served the Countess for 1 year before she admitted the truth. But that truth was not an ending but a beginning, the start of a love story that could only exist because we were both brave enough to admit what we felt, and bold enough to choose it over everything else. Sometimes service is just a job, but sometimes it is the path that leads you exactly where you were always meant to be. And sometimes a countess is just an employer, but sometimes she is the love of your life waiting for you to realize that the distance between you was never as great as it seemed.